All right, g'day, welcome. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, bass. Yeah. Okay. The truth about cheap basses. What I got here is a cheap bass. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something about cheap basses. They're better than any bass that is more expensive than a cheap bass. No, they're not. I did a previous video, and I was talking about quality of instruments and why you buy your instruments and how to judge whether you got a good instrument or not. This is my first actual bass. I've had one technical bass before, but it was an unplayable bass that I found in the garbage. It was some sort of a P bass kind of knockoff. The action was like that high. There was cement on the headstock. It was like a Sears bass or so. I couldn't even tell you what brand it was. So technically that was my first bass, but that was like 25, well, it's more like 35, 40 years ago. And so it doesn't really count. This is my real first bass. And it's actually not a bad bass. It's the Ibanez Geo 205, add 9,000 letters after it, and basically it's in walnut, stain. Very Spartan bass. But you know what? It's a good bass. I'm going to actually even put new strings on. Yes, I'm going to put new strings on this bass. These strings are 3 years old. These are the original strings that the bass came with. And yes, I even still have the price tag on there just to drive people nuts. I paid $391.99 plus tax. It came up by the time I got my place. It was like $460 something. And is it buzzy? Let's try the B string. Standard tuning. That sounds like a pretty buzzy, plus I'm, got the bass like this instead of like this. It's a pretty buzzy bass for sure, for sure. But it's not bad, because there's not quite enough tension on the 5 string. If I were to buy a bass over again, knowing what I know now, there's a 6 string version of this bass. I would have bought the 6 string to start with. You say, well, you shouldn't start on a 6 string. Well, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and I disagree with that strongly. After you learn your first instrument, and you know that when you pick up another instrument, you're going to stick with it, you're better just to cut to the chase and buy what you want. This whole you have to work your way, you got to do the 4 string for so many years, and then go to the 5 string, and then work your way up to the 6 string. Just start off with the 6 string. You know what I mean? You'll get used to it. Like again, if you've never played a musical note in your life, yeah, maybe the 4 or the 5 string might be better to start with. The 4 string would definitely be the easiest. But if you're going to be stuck with a 4 string for 3 years, 4 years, or 3 years in this case, for what, like in that 3 years, if you stuck with it and you're practicing on a daily basis and actual active practicing, you're probably going to find that you're going to want to upgrade your bass after probably even a few months, right? But don't upgrade your bass too soon, because one thing that this instrument has taught me is that it's a really good budget instrument. The neck on this thing, it's like guitar thin. Like it'd be thick for a guitar for sure, but it's like if you played a 7 string, like the thickness of an average 7 string neck, it might be a tad bit thicker than that, but it has a very beautiful C shape. And the fretwork, it's actually really not bad. Like, yeah, well, I can't even really say it's fret sprout. You can feel the end of the frets just because it's a, it's a Spartan thing. The action, even in sitting in this awkward position with it, a guy that doesn't even really know how to like, that's pretty good. It's good. But with the bass, it's more down here. How is it? Not too much tension. Again, I'm in an awkward position to play smoothly, but yeah, it's not a bad bass. But what it's teaching me is what I want my next bass and what I don't want my next bass. So the thing is that buying this bass and spending the time, like Billy Sheen made a good point. He said he had bought a bass when he was younger and just starting out. He bought this bass that it was awkward to play. He couldn't really get out of it what he wanted, and he just wanted to upgrade basses right away. And he goes, a lot of people upgrade their basses too soon. And, it's like you get it. He goes, live with it for a bit, and learn. Like you might have to fight with it, but there's a valuable lesson into fighting with your bass a bit, because after a while, what you find is that you'll hone your techniques to be able to appease a bass that's unappeasable. You know what I mean? And when you do get your new bass, you're like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Now this is easier to do, etc., etc. But that said, I've played basses for any ranging anywhere from dirt cheap, free, I guess you could say, but like dirt cheap to a few grand. You know what I mean? And what I found was the difference between the cheapest bass and the most expensive bass was probably less than what I find between the cheapest guitars and the most expensive guitars by that much, right? And it holds true for guitars too. You pay this much more, guitars, violins, whatever. You pay this much more, you get that much more, right? So what it is that are you getting? Well, with this one, you're getting Sparta. You're getting the most Spartan finish. They put just enough finish on this thing, on this Akuma, or how you say it, body, Akumu, how do you say it, how do you pronounce it? They put just enough finish on it so the wood doesn't rot. That's it. They put just enough stain on the neck so it doesn't rot. It is a finished neck, but it is very, 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 very smooth, right? So am I telling you this is better than any bass, more expensive? No. It's only got 21 frets or 22 frets. For some people, that's not an issue. For a metalhead guy like me, that's an issue. I want 24 frets. So my buy-in rate for a 24 fret bass is going to be at least $500-$600. About $200 or $300 more than this, right? Pick a brand, any brand. But the thing is like the heel joint on these things, these SRs, whether you play the base model or the prestige model, they're really, really, really nice playing basses. You can't go wrong with them. If you can't learn on this, you can't learn. It's as simple as that. I played the 4-string version of this. I've never had a chance. I didn't know they had a 6-string version of this, which was about $100 more or whatever, $150. I would have bought it. Just cut to the chase, right? And get cracking on. But I knew this is not going to be my forever bass. Well, like I might have it forever, but it's not like the forever bass. So what is the forever bass? Well, the forever bass is the bass that you spent 10 times the amount to save $10. You spend $100 to save 10, buying 10 other basses to get to the bass that you should have bought right after your first bass. Because, it was too expensive. But then you buy all these other basses in between. Like, I'm not going to buy this base model bass and then buy the fancy version of the base model bass. So this base model, okay, with these pickups, before you get to the next level of pickups, is going to be anywhere between like $280 and say 600. Same base, same base. You might have a fancier finish. Oh, look at that! It has a Acrylium burst. Yeah, it's $700. Yeah, Kuma body, same pickups, same electronics, same Jatoba fingerboard, same maple neck, same tuners, same bridge. You just paid for the fancy. Now, for some people, that's fine. That's fine. But if you're looking for bang for the buck, the Spartan machines always kind of give you the best bang for the buck, right? Because it's like I say, they just put enough stain on this so that it's functional. So this is quick to do, so that's why it's cheaper, right? Less is more. But if it's just get the job done, great. But what if you want something that's a little nicer and you want it to inspire you? Okay, well, are you getting good value for the money if you're just buying this base model in the fancier version? Well, if that's all you can afford, that's all you can afford. But what I would say is stick with the base model until you can afford either the next model up, if that's all you could ever afford. But I would even say go a bit further than that. What is your dream base? Is it $10,000? Is it $10,000? Well, maybe you don't necessarily need to make that your forever base, unless you can find a way to finance it. I wouldn't go too much into debt for something, but for some people it might be worth it. If you knew that was, let's say you got a chance to play that your dream bass 4 or 5 times in the music store, and every bass you've tried for and since just doesn't meet up to that bass. That's the bass, and that bass is $10,000. We'll just throw an arbitrary number. It doesn't matter if it's $2,000, $10,000, and it's like, okay, that's impossible to get to that. So if you don't buy, say, the next 18 bases that are like $500 and $700 and work your way up, don't work your way up. Just cut to the chase and get your professional instrument. So let's say your second instrument is your professional instrument. And that, like by professional, I mean it does everything you want. It's not about the price as much about, you're paying for specs and features. That's what you're paying for, and playability. These are the three things that you're normally paying for an instrument. The aesthetics is last, right? The aesthetics, yeah, trying to find an instrument that's aesthetically pleasing can inspire you to play and makes it more enjoyable, but it doesn't add anything to the playability. It doesn't add it, like aesthetics doesn't add anything to playability or the sound or anything like that. So that should be last on your list. So what should be first on your list? Well, the first thing before you look at materials or anything, especially if you're a new player, playability. Playability, whether it's a guitar, a piano, a violin, a bass, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, drums, playability. Can you set this thing up to be either good enough to learn on, or let's say, okay, I'm not, I don't have a lot of money. Uh, I'm already playing. I've been playing for years. I just need something that's going to, be good enough so I can do gigs with and play well. This bass will do it. It's a base model bass, but it'll do it. And let's say you don't want the 5 string, the 4 string's even cheaper. You know what I mean? The 4 string, it plays exactly like this, except for it's a little easier because you don't have to worry about the muting techniques with the 5 string. And I can imagine the 6 string is a little more effort to play, not harder to play, but more effort to play because it got the extra string and it's a wider neck, whatever. But everything else is the same, the scale length, all that stuff. So the way I value an instrument, okay, so this instrument, bang for the buck, is awesome because there's nothing special. But when you pick this up, this is a tool. You just play it. You don't think about it. You don't gawk at it. You just grab the tool, make it go boom, boom, ding, boom, boom, right? There you go. Make it do that. Make it do that thing. Okay, so but how would I upgrade from something like this? Well, okay, well first off, if I can find a bass that plays better than it, okay, and it's a five string, well, that'd be great. But am I just buying a fancier version of the same thing? Okay, well, let's look at the specs. Okay, so let's say the next bass I'm looking at, okay, is a Dingwall and a Warwick, a Fender, uh, whatever, right? Or the upper end Iron Label version of this, okay? And I look at all the specs and see what pickups they come with woods, everything like that. And okay, and I try them all. And let's just say, for argument's sake, every bass I pick up does not play better than this one. It plays either just as good as or not as good. So if it doesn't play better than this bass, but it sounds like so much better, am I willing to work a little harder because it's a better sounding bass? Well, maybe yes for you, maybe no for you, right? But let's say it doesn't play as well. It's three times the price. It doesn't sound any better than this. It might sound different, but not better, not worse. Just sounds better. Is it worth the money then? Maybe not. You know what I mean? Maybe it's too, maybe that's not a good deal. Okay, let's say it's a $2,000 bass and has an Akuma body, same as this. Maple neck, same as this. Same profile. It's another SR. Five strings, okay, and it has a Jatoba fingerboard. Well, but it has really good electronics. Okay, so it's this with really good electronics that you can't find in any of the other lower models. Well, then you measure it against that. But let's say there's another caveat. It's an extended range bass, so it's a 35 and a half inch scale instead of 34 inch scale. Okay, so I'm going to pay extra for that, right? So let's say, going back to this, I want to stick with a five string. I won't complicate it. Yes, I want a six string and a four string bass as well. But let's say, bang for the buck, the five string is the best way for me to go. Okay, so I look at every model on the planet for five strings, and I find a five string for $1,500. I find another five string for $1,500. I find another five string for $1,500, and they all serve what I need. But one has an Akuma body for $1,500, okay, which is like it's supposed to be like a mahogany knockoff. It's more like a poplar knockoff, right? Um, but it is this is a mahogany species, so but it's not a hard. It's like a semi hardwood maybe. It's really extremely light, so it's not a super hardwood. I'm sure if I press my fingernail into it, it'll mark easy, like basswood or something like that, right? So I look at the third one, and I look at all three of them. Okay, so I got the Akuma body, but the third one has a swamp ash body. Oh, okay. Well, swamp ash usually sounds a little bit better, so you try it. Okay, it has a more. It's more resonant because it's a denser material. Okay, and then let's say it's really grainy and really pretty, so it's got the aesthetic. That's a plus, right? Won't affect the sound at all, but it's more inspiring to play because it's a nice looking bass. And the other two are extended range basses. So one's a multi scale, one's 35 inch, but the other one's a multi scale and 35 and a half inch. And then I just got to decide, let's say the one with the basswood or the Akuma bodies is the multi scale one, which has a slightly more advantage for the tension on the low B. And the other one is 35 inch scale as well, but it's just a regular fret like this. So tension wise, it's not quite as even. It's better than the 34 inch scale of this. So yes, I'm willing to pay more for that. But so now I got to debate whether I want the swamp ash body more or the multi scale, right? So now we're arguing over features, and that'll okay. But then you find another bass with a mahogany body, multi-scale, uh, passive bass, okay, but an ebony fingerboard instead of a Jatoba fingerboards, and a mahogany body, and it's under $1,000, right? And you look at this bass and you go, wow, okay, it doesn't have the active electronics, but everything else is, bang for the buck. It's going to sound as good as those other basses all in passive. This bass is predominantly passive. It has a little fat switch here. That's the only active part about it. Um, at that point, you're just arguing over features and whether it's a great deal or not, right? Getting those features for a good deal or not. So I look at it like that. It's just, what are you getting for your money? So we'll say if you get a base model, this is where you start, and say for a 5 string, maybe the Yamaha one is like 80, $20 cheaper or whatever. Maybe the Jackson one is like $10 cheaper, $15 cheaper, or whatever. They're all going to be in around the same price range. Okay. So at that point, at the bottom of the barrel, it's more about which one plays the best. Probably going to be the Ibanez most of the time. They're pretty hard to beat. Reliability wise, you can't beat the Ibanez's. The Yamahas are good too. The Jacksons are hit and miss. Every level of Jackson's like that. It's either a guitar you swear by or you swear at. I've never seen a consistent Jackson, but yet we love them anyway. Right? Where like Charvel and PRSs are consistent all day. The Ibanez's, they're consistent, but they make them typically out of the cheapest materials possible. Right? So they over design it. They design something really great, but they tend to design them and make them out of the cheapest stuff possible. So, which is too bad because it's like people are willing to pay a little bit more. Like if this actually had an actual mahogany body, everything else being the same, that would change the resonance a little bit. You know what I mean? If it had a multi-scale and just made out of what it's made out of, but it was an actual multi-scale with 24 frets, bang for the buck, it'd be almost impossible bass to beat. You say, yeah, but you could just swap out the pickups for something better. You probably can. You probably buy some Seymour Duncans or Brunellis or whatever, and they'll go in there. But by the time you replace these two pickups and wired them in and everything like that, you've probably bought the next bass up, where you could have just started right away, right? So if that's what you're after, right? Again, it all factors in, like the hardware and everything like that. And pickups are a funny thing because you get pickups that are okay like this. Once you start putting effects and stuff like on these pickups, like they're, you can buy the most expensive pickups in the world, and they're really not going to give you anything more because you can or maybe they'll give you that much more. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's just true. It's just true. The bigger thing with pickups is, are they balanced? Meaning, is your low string coming out as clear and at the same volume as your high strings, right? And that's typically where cheaper pickups lose, is that they're not necessarily better sounding or worse sounding. It's just they're unbalanced. And you can balance some pickups. These ones, I don't know how you would do it because you can't reach the poles, the screws in them. So they're kind of fixed, right? So yeah, there's that. But for upgrading a bass, like to be better than this, okay, well, it has to have features that, like I say, let's say, okay, well, the only thing I would really like on this is 24 frets. I can live with the 34-inch scale because I like it. I've tried a few basses that were 35-inch scale. I tried some like Dingwalls that were like, 35 and a half to 37-inch scale. I couldn't play them because it was just too, the bass sounded amazing, but it was just too impossible to play because my hands were too small or something like that. Not a problem for me, but for some people, right? So let's say I'm okay with living with the 34-inch scale length. Okay, so any bass that's a 34-inch scale is on the radar. Then it's just, okay, well, does it have better pickups, better body, whatever. But let's say I want 24 frets. Well, the next model up from this is about $500-600, up to about $1,100 for like the base, like the the stripped down version of it like this with 24 frets. So it's like, okay, well, then I compare that against all the other 24 fret basses out there that are 5 strings or 4 strings or whatever you're going for, and see which one actually gives you the best bang for the buck. Maybe you find two basses, one's $600 and the other one's 600 and say $50, but it comes with a rosewood fingerboard and 24 frets. Maybe that you might like that more than the Jatoba fingerboard, because the Jatoba fingerboards, this one's starting to darken a bit, but when you get them, they look like bright orange. They're god awful ugly. It looks like somebody put an orange peel on your your fingerboard. But they're not bad. Like, they work fine for the bass. They're clear. It does all the things. Does it matter that much? Like like the oh no, I can hear the huge difference. Most of the time, you can't really pick out that much of a difference. But you might find when you're playing live that you do notice a slight difference. It's kind of one of those things that even if it's a small difference, once you hear it, you hear it. And what ends up happening is that becomes a bartering chip for your next bass. Where, let's say you've been playing on a bass with a maple fingerboard, which one thing I love about maple is that at any price range, you can find a maple fingerboard. But maple is typically one of the cheaper woods out there just because it's so readily available. And it actually sounds good. It tends to sound a little bit brighter than, say, rosewood, and definitely, similar to, say, ebony, but it's, got more mids to it than ebony. Ebony tends to almost have like a natural scooped sound, right? But ebony is beautiful. It's jet black, whatever. And there's Madagascar ebony. There's all different kinds of ebonies. But the jet black ebonies on a fingerboard, like, you might pay an extra $300 on your instrument just for that fingerboard. You know what I mean? But usually the ebony is going to be saved for the more upper end. Rosewood and ebony get saved for the upper end boards, fingerboards. So those usually instruments, you're judging them not just on the playability, but you're going to be judging them on the materials, the pickups, all that stuff. So the overall package, right? So just be careful when you're buying something, when you're upgrading that. Like I say, you buy this one and then you buy the next one up. That's $700, but it still has the same pickups. It still has the same electronics. Still has the same Akuma body, the same maple neck, the same. You just bought a fancier finish. That's it. And again, that's fine. But if that's, it's like you're going to find that after a while, you're going to be playing, and it's just going to be like you'll play this and you'll play that one, and it's like you'll play the other one more just because it's prettier. But you didn't get anything more. You know what I mean? You just got a fancier looking bass or guitar, or whatever it is you bought, right? But if you bought the one with the better pickups and the more active electronics, okay, then you're going to say, yeah, this one is definitely got advantage over this. So features I'm looking for in my next bass is definitely 24 frets. Definitely, I tend to like a humbucker sound rather than the J pickup sound. These are in between a J and a like they are a J pickup, but they're, they sort of look like mini buckers, so they're not really humbuckers, but they're like humbuckers. They do sound okay. Like, I mean, for a bass model, they sound okay, you know. But what I also found is that I want something more resonant. For example, when you do play an instrument that's really, really, really good. For example, and I regret not buying it. I really do regret not buying the PRS Kingfisher bass that I tried. That thing was so nice. It had fake humbuckers in it. They were really single coils, but with a dummy coil. The aesthetics of it was amazing. It was a neck through body. It had a rosewood fingerboard, an ash body, and maple neck. You know what I mean. And then the aesthetic blue, and the bird inlays and all that. And the fretwork was phenomenal. The playability phenomenal. The hardware, it was PRS quality, right? And it was $800. Knew they were like 1,400 and something. And I even regret not buying that bass at 1,400. You know what I mean? The reason why I didn't buy it was because it was a 4-string. So I ended up buying this instead. Because I needed a 5-string. But I couldn't find a 5-string in stock that I really, really wanted. So I went with this. I said, I'll keep it cheap because I needed a bass. I just needed a bass, right? So I bought this 3 years ago. I said, okay, I can live with this because I didn't spend too much money on it. And even when I go to sell it, if I spent 460 and I sell it for 230 and get half my money back, you know, probably even be able to sell it for 300. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, yeah, it's like $160 off right now. And I think these things are up to, went up a bit anyway. So I'll probably, what I mean. You're not going to lose out very much on this instrument. But let's say I bought this one, the next one up, and then it's like, okay, you keep telling yourself that this, say the dingwall. Let's just say you really want a dingwall. It's like $3,300 or whatever plus tax. So you're gonna be you're gonna be getting close to $4,000 or around $4,000 by the time you walk out of the store with it or mail order or whatever. You say that's just too much. It's just too expensive, right? But it's exactly what I want. But it's just too expensive. So you buy, okay, this one for 460. The next one is 700. The next one is 1100. Next one is 1200. The next one is 1500. You see where I'm going? You're going to spend $100 to save 10. Where if you just say, you know what, I'm going to jump from this to my forever bass. Maybe it's a Fender Player Plus at $1,700. But you buy that bass, you've tried it out, many times in the store. You know that's what you want, and you buy it, and then you're just like, all you do is play. You don't think about the next bass. You're not thinking about the uprate. And I learned this the hard way with guitars years ago, where I kept, like I wanted my Gibson SG, but like I couldn't justify the Gibson SG, so I bought a couple of Epiphones, and I bought some other Ibanez's and other guitars. And I was sitting there and I was looking at my guitar collection. I'm like, that was 500, that was 400, the double neck was 900, and it's like I could have bought my dream guitar, which I do have now, which is the 60 SG61 reissue. Might not be the best guitar in the world, but it was my favorite guitar forever, right? Had I just jumped to the chase and bought that, I mean, I enjoyed those other guitars. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like, you know what I mean. Like I could have spent more time with an instrument that I really liked, and will have that I have had for almost. Well, I got it in 2009, so 16 years. You know what I mean? I have another guitar that I've had for 19 years. You know what I mean? The longest guitar I ever had was my first guitar, which was 22 years. I couldn't believe I had it for 22 years. And I barely played it, right? It was my first electric guitar. And the guitar I upgraded to was a cheap $150 TCM Explorer. And that guitar was fun for about a year or so, but after by that time I was spending more time in music stores and stuff like that, trying more expensive instruments. And that's the other thing too. When you go and even if you're going to go buy a beginner bass or a beginner guitar, when you go into the store, if you're just starting out, try it just to try it, but like wait till you get a little bit of experience under your belt before you do that. But try stuff at different price ranges. Like even the outrageously expensive stuff that you can't afford, like try the Dingwall, even if you can't afford it. And then try the Iron Label, SR Ibanez and say, hey, you know what? Which one could I live with? You might find that that bass at half the price is going to do everything you need it to do just fine, and you don't need that really expensive bass, right? And I'm like that with all the equipment. I look at what features it has. If this bass plays just as good as that bass, and that one's double the price, and they're both multi-scale, whatever. Okay, the Dingwall might have a few sound a little bit better because it has a slightly longer scale, but the other one will do what I want it to do. I'll go for that. But it's like, okay, well, you know what? I use this more of like elephant murmuring kind of a string anyway, where got the tag in here. Okay. Right? And I don't really care if my scale is longer than 35 inch or 34 inch anyway. I can live with that. then can you justify a $1,500 bass? Probably not, right? Because if this is doing the job for you, tool to the job, but you say, okay, yeah, but it's kind of dull and boring. So okay, you're not buying it based on playability anymore. Your next one, you're buying it for aesthetics. So then you look for whatever's prettiest, that at least meets this standard. And then that way you stay inspired. You don't spend more money than you need to. That's another way to look at it. But for me, it's like when I hear the extended range basses and I want something to make my H7 string and 8 string guitars sound and 6 string guitars sound really heavy. I know I'm looking at an extended range bass. So if I look at a bass and it's a phenomenal bass and it's let's say it's got an ebony fingerboard, two big humbuckers in it, uh, ash body or an alder body or mahogany body, whatever your favorite hardwood is, and it does all that, but it's a 34-inch scale. Even if it's a really good deal, it's not worth it for me to upgrade from this to that because it's just like I'm kind of buying the same thing. And guitar players are even worse for this than bass players. Bass players tend to buy basses they like, right? Where guitar players buy shiny new objects, and then it's like, okay, yeah, this guitar is so much greater. And then 3 weeks later, you realize you got 7 guitars that pretty much are the exact same thing. For my guitars, they do have variations. Like there's, like my two 6 string flying V's are very similar. One's just sounds better than the other one. It's the best sounding guitar I've ever owned. For particularly thrash metal. And then my other guitars sound, not completely different, but different enough because one's an 8 string, one's a 7 string. So I have extended range guitars with, 26.5-inch scale length. They sound different, Then I got my Gibsons with 24 3/4 scales with single pole pickups versus 4-wire pickups. And those things have a much more vintage sound to them. So, there is difference in the nuance of the guitars, right? Where it's not just the same metal guitar over and over again. Where my Charbel, the main thing about that guitar over my Jackson Flying V is it's got a Floyd Rose on it. I am more of a fixed bridge player, right? But it's neat to have a guitar with a really good Floyd Rose on it, right? And it's better than my I have 2 guitars with Floyd Roses on it. One's a Floyd Special, and one's the Floyd 1000. And there's no comparison. Well, there's a comparison, but the comparison is that the Floyd 1000 is better. It just does more. It's just better set up, and you just can't get a Floyd Special to quite do that. Even if you mod it a bit, and it's not worth modding. You're not going to save any money modding these things. So hopefully this is a good enough discussion for now. I know it's a bit of a long video. I tend to make long-winded videos anyway, but it's just so that you're not out there spending $100 to save 10 buying the same bass over and over again, thinking you're getting something different or the same guitar or whatever. I really like the idea of try it before you buy it, particularly with basses. Now, I'm one of those guys because I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I play necks as small as violins and mandolins to bass necks, right? And I have played in the stores extended range bass necks, and 35.5-inch scale, that kind of stuff. I've played, I play extended range guitar necks, 26.5 scale, whatever. I've tried up to 28-inch on the 7 string with a fan fret and the multi scale. And what I learned is that sometimes after trying stuff, it kind of takes away that wanderlust of oh, if I just buy this will fix my, it'll do everything I want or whatever. And it doesn't really work like that. Sometimes you will need more than one instrument. You know what I mean? For different things. Like for example, a really good 4-string bass. You'll be able to do things on that you'll find very difficult to do on 5-string, 6-string basses and extended range basses. So maybe you just need a good 34-inch scale or 32-inch or 30-inch short scaled bass for a 4-string to do certain things, right? So that's something different than what you have, right? or you need to go the other way to like 37.5 inch, 37-inch scale. Uh, like there are some ridiculous custom bases out there with like 29 or sorry 39-inch scale. Like I don't know how you'd even play that. I don't even know how you'd reach the that's pretty long. That's a pretty long neck. But like anything, you make it work. You make it work, right? But some people might require that. So try as many things as you can before you buy your next. But live with the base you have for as long as you can until you're really sure what your next thing is. For me, it's because of the metal thing. If I wasn't doing metal for rock, 34-inch scale is fine. For hard rock, 34-inch scale is fine. For light metal, 34-inch scale is fine. But for like the black metal, black metal, even 34-inch scale is probably better. But for progressive metal, for metalcore, deathcore, speed metal, modern thrash metal. Thrash metal, you're probably still okay with the if you want an 80s, 90s sound. Yeah, 34-inch scale is fine, but 35 might suit you a little bit better. I just get a little more bottom end in there, right? So yeah, modern sounds, you need modern instruments. Vintage sounds, you need vintage instruments. But sometimes you can find compromise instruments that can do a little bit of everything, and those are usually the ones that are the best bang for the buck. But you have to look at all the specs, and see what you're paying for. So anyway, there we go. I'll leave it at that. We're gonna play this thing for a little bit, and keep hearing something bobbing around. It's probably that squirrel, Marvin. He's probably trying to break into my house again. Anyway, there we go.